Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about nostalgia. I used to be one of those people that was obsessed with talking about how great things used to be. Everything used to be so much better, than it is these days. Everything was just amazing back in the day. And this is a common problem that a lot of people have. Where they think their childhood, their life was so much better than everybody else's. Like, oh, I got to play these particular video games growing up. I got to have this lifestyle growing up. You wouldn't even know what you missed out on. And, when we have YouTube, we can see a lot of people playing a lot of these old video games, these people that are nostalgic about these games. Usually the channels are really small because the audience of nostalgic people is actually not very big because most people moved on with their lives. But there's a lot of things that people, like to revisit, especially like old music, old songs. I mean, you go into a grocery store, you go anywhere, and you're listening to NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears, and that was new stuff. Eminem, that was new stuff when I was a kid, and now it's being played in grocery stores and retail outlets as if it's old vintage music. What's next? It's going to be elevator music. So that's where it's gone. It's the things that I thought were so amazing because I was experiencing it growing up is still around. It's kind of funny. But there's a lot of video games. Video games have aged morbidly bad. A lot of the games that I was nostalgic about, like, they're clunky, the graphics are terrible, the mechanics may be sophisticated even to this day, but they're just, severely outdated. And when you look at a lot of old video games, the graphics are fuzzy and low res, and it's all, the animation is janky, and the controls are all rigid and floaty, and things just are not very good. And people glamorize it like it was the best thing ever back in the day. And the way things are now, they may not be any better. Like, I personally barely play video games because there's nothing out there that I like. And quite frankly, there's better things to do most of the time. Especially with, YouTube and, being able to, like, Instagram. Instagram is like, I feel like that thing should have died already. Like, you just post pictures and little video snippets. And then, like, I mean, it just seems so underdeveloped and outdated, to be posting stupid little, selfies and shit, And so, like, there's always better things out there than especially what you experienced growing up. Like, I was watching some videos on, like, early 2000s, and everything was like the original Xbox websites. Everything was chrome, everything was colorful and see-through plastic. The year 2000, styles and fashion, low-rise jeans and all this crap. The mech bling. I mean, there's huge YouTube channels devoted to this kind of stuff where, different fashion back then, different stuff, like everything was trying to look mysterious and sci-fi and futuristic because it was Y2K, it was the year 2000, it was a big deal as the millennium. And I mean, when you look back at that stuff, you can tell they were just fronting. They were just pretending. Like, they were using like Windows XP and shit, and they were just putting these crappy JPEG image skins on everything to try to make it look futuristic and shit. So it was kind of like just like the illusion of, again, those consoles could barely run anything these days. They're really outdated. They're really weak computers. But those styles, those things people are nostalgic about. People remember those things fondly, those novelties, those gimmicks, those styles. People overappreciate a lot of this stuff, and underappreciate what's happening now, and maybe even overappreciate what's happening now when you're trying to belittle nostalgia. But I see so many nostalgic YouTube channels where they're playing old games from the early 2000s, like Unreal Tournament, Phantasy Star Online, all these different games. Like, people caught up with the Sega Dreamcast. They won't shut up about the Sega Dreamcast or the PlayStation 2 or something, and it's sad. They're all middle-aged. They're all, getting really old. Nobody's really watching their videos anymore. They're talking about old news, terrible graphics, and people just want to relive in that. They just want to, and it's gotten harder and harder to do for me anyway. I remember wanting to move on from a lot of this stuff. I'd be like, I can't believe I'm still playing this game. I can't believe I still focus on this stuff. Like, I could tell logically it didn't make any sense. I knew subconsciously that, it's just that, I got fixated on it. I got hooked on it. I grew up on it. That's what I know, and it's no longer relevant. To know that it's no longer relevant, but not being able to let go at the same time. And some people are very happy about it. And I just feel like, it's an obsession with garbage, Again, the graphics are, they're really bad, for those old video games. The gameplay mechanics are really outdated and clunky, and, there are some good elements. There's some unique things about everything, no matter how outdated it is. You could say, people still play chess, people still play checkers, people still play cards, people still do a lot of things, But it's just like relishing and living in that past, never letting go, having YouTube channels dedicated to that. And I think the YouTube channels dedicated to talking about the past rather than trying to live in the past, and it's really interesting, to have an outside perspective of, like, what was trending back then, what was mesmerizing back then, rather than indulging in it. And, from an inside perspective, from an outside perspective, kind of looking in, okay, look at all these people mesmerized by transparent colored plastic, or everything being chrome, or, low quality 3D animation that everybody was doing back then, or, all these things that people were doing back then that was mesmerizing. And these days is considered, just really basic. I remember dabbling with 3D software, trying to make 3D animations. I can't fathom doing that these days. Everybody does it now. And in record time, and, YouTube and stuff. People just, back then, if you made a 3D animation, it was kind of big, and, not everybody was doing it, and people were starting to show that technology off. There was no YouTube, there was no, platforms really to just indulge in every single 3D animation ever made or anything like that. I'm not saying that you should just give up on a lot of this stuff because everybody's doing it and it's all been done before, and there's no way you can keep up or, compete, and you're just wasting your time. But, like, there's new opportunities now. That would be stupid for me to try to do the same thing that I was doing back then, And even, like making videos on this channel, I realized there's so much potential out there. There's so many different things I could be doing that would be more productive or more interesting. I'm just not aware of it, or I'm just not doing it, And, but yeah, I just think nostalgia is terrible, and I'm glad I moved on from the large majority of it. I used to look at it with rose-colored glasses and tell everybody that would listen, like, oh, things were so great back when I was a kid. Video games and movies and music was so much better. I'm glad I grew out of that, but some people never will. They're fully invested, and that's sad.